the conference group. Please enter your passcode followed by the pound key. Welcome to the conference group. Please enter your passcode followed by the pound key.
On the agenda. A zero in the number? Yeah, there should be 101-707.
No passcode has been detected. Please hold for the next available operator.
No, it's correct.
The conference group. Please enter your passcode followed by the pound key.
Gloria?
Yes. I have 1 o'clock on my.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Public Service Commission's July 15th, 2020 meeting. First, we want to start off with a sort of a celebratory note. I want to congratulate, and all the commissioners and staff want to congratulate Tom Walsh and Amy Wiley, who've attained their certificates and pins for completing 5 years of service as state employees. So congratulations to Tom and Amy. The reading of the meeting minutes is the next item. Is the next, okay, I better have the, yeah, that's a good idea. Commissioner Correa, you here?
I am here.
You're there. Commissioner Conaway.
Here.
Commissioner Drexler.
Here.
And Commissioner Gray.
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. The reading of the meeting minutes. We have the June 3rd public and executive session. Are there any changes or modifications to the minutes as reported by the secretary?
Move we accept the public and executive session minutes of June 3rd as presented.
I second it.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. We next have the minutes of June 17th, both public and executive session. Any changes to those minutes, commissioners?
I move
Chair,
to
I move
approve
that
the June 17th public and executive session minutes as presented.
Second.
Any discussion on the
Commissioner
motion?
Grayson.
Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We have the consent agenda. Does any commissioner wish to have an item on the consent agenda removed and placed on the regular agenda? Not hearing any requests. Does someone have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
I move that we adopt the consent agenda as mentioned.
I
Second the motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. We are now on the regular agenda. Number 1 is in the matter of the joint application of Artesian Water Company, Incorporated in the City of Delaware City for approval to close on an asset purchase agreement. And we have, I believe, on behalf of Artesian, who do we have? Mr. Scott Stephen?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. May it please the Commission, this is Carl Randall, General Counsel of Artesian. Present with me is Mr. David Spaked, our Chief Financial Officer, and I believe on the line are also our President and Chief Executive Officer, Diane Taylor, and our Chief Operating Officer, Nicole Taylor. I would speak primarily on behalf of Artesian.
Thank you, Mr. Randall. Please proceed.
Artesian and the City of Delaware City filed a joint application for approval of an asset purchase agreement on June 11th, 2020. We believe that the application satisfies all of the requirements of Section 215, and we believe it should be. In fact, we believe with the passage of time, it has become effective. We understand that a letter was filed yesterday by Suez, and a response letter was filed by counsel for the City of Delaware City. If the commission wants to go to those letters, I would like to reserve time to address any comments that are made with respect to those, but otherwise, I'm available if the commission has any questions concerning the application.
Thank you, Mr. Randall. Is there someone here on the line from Suez who's going to address the letter?
Yes, Chairman Winslow. This is Gary Prettyman, Senior Director of Rates for Suez.
Welcome. In spirit,
Welcome,
anyway.
Hi. Yes, in spirit. I just have a few comments. Thank you, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners, for allowing Suez to make a comment regarding this matter in docket number 200361. Before discussing the letter that Suez Water Delaware filed yesterday on Delafile and also sent to the parties via email, I'd like to briefly discuss our concern. We are concerned about the customers of Delaware City and that due process was not followed in the city's decision to sell to Artesian. We are not questioning Artesian's ability to admirably run the system. We are concerned about the lack of public transparency. As stated in the company's letter, there is no record that any copy of Resolution 20060101 was made public or circulated prior to or during the council meeting for public review or comment. In fact, the city amended Resolution 20060101 in pen ink during the meeting to reflect certain changes discussed at the time. Resolution 20060101 was only made available for public review online June 26, 2020, while the resolution was passed on June 1, 2020. Without the opportunity for public review, the citizens of Delaware City had no opportunity to comment, especially considering there's a substantial financial difference between Artesian's and Suez's offer. I would like to ask that the company's letter be entered into the record as if orally read. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Prettyman. Artesian, Mr. Randall, do you have any objection to the Suez letter being entered into the record as their Exhibit 1?
Well, yes, in this one regard. The application that Artesian and the City of Delaware City filed on June 11th under Section 215 is controlled by a timeline in Section 215D. 215D, which is actually cited twice in Suez's letter, so they were aware of the statute, provides that if 30 days pass without further action, the application is deemed approved. For its own reasons, Suez waited more than 30 days after the filing of the joint application to file its letter. So by operation of law, Artesian believes that the joint application is already effectively approved.
Thank you, Mr. Randall. Mr. Prettyman, any response?
Not at this time, Chairman.
Mr. O'Brien, are you there?
I am Chairman Winslow.
What do you say about Mr. Randall's opinion, legal opinion?
Well, I agree with Mr. Randall's legal opinion, but I will back up for a second just to advise the commission on the question before them right now, and that would be concerning this letter from Suez and whether it can be entered into the evidence as an exhibit. And I would just say that Suez Water is not an intervener in the case. They're not a party, so they typically would not be offering evidence in today's hearing. But there's certainly nothing wrong with the commission, if it so chooses, to consider the letter as public comment. It's been filed in Delaware. It's been provided to the parties. I know it was just yesterday. But my advice would be not to admit it as an exhibit, but since you've heard about it and seen it, it can be considered public comment, as well as the response document from Delaware City.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Chairman, this is Commissioner Gray. I do have a question. There was a statement made, I think, by Suez that the due process was not followed. And I'm curious if someone could help me understand whose due process was violated. Was it Delaware City Council due process, or was it the Public Service Commission, or some other due process, please?
Mr. Prettyman.
Chairman, Commissioner Gray, we have requested through FOIA a volume of documents and information pertaining to that. But in short, we believe that it was the city's due process that was not followed.
So my question, and perhaps this is Mr. O'Brien, are you representing us?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Gray.
Okay. This question for Mr. O'Brien. So if the City Council of Delaware City's due process is believed to have been violated, do we, the Public Service Commission, have any standing to rule on that matter or make a decision accordingly?
This is Chris Griffiths from Delaware City. If I may, I'd like to answer that question if I could, or at least give some insight for your council to advise you. If you don't, just a moment. If you don't mind first getting my feedback from Mr. O'Brien, if he wants to yield to you accordingly, but you can make your comments after he first responds. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray. Bill O'Brien. And as you know, Tom Walsh is representing staff today, but you are correct. I am commission counsel in this matter. So, no, Commissioner Gray, that would not be a factor under the statutory standard of review for a 215 application. You would be looking at whether the application is made or the acquisition is proposed in accordance with law for a proper purpose and is consistent with the public interest. In my opinion, a claim that due process was somehow violated during the bidding process for the acquired asset, and at least the way it was framed today, would not enter into an analysis of whether they've met the statutory standard for approving a 215 acquisition.
I'm almost clear, Mr. O'Brien, but does that say that we do not have standing to adjudicate a violation of due process by Delaware City or Delaware City Council?
That is correct, sir.
All right, that answers my question. If someone else wanted to comment from Delaware City, I yield to the chair.
Yeah, Mr. Griffiths, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I won't reiterate the comments already made by legal counsel. I believe that they were fair and accurate. That's the reason why I just sort of rise in my own office here to speak, because I want the record to be clear that Delaware City does not feel that we violated any due process. And if there is a due process violation that Suez believes occurred, the proper channel is to go file a FOIA violation with the Attorney General's office, not before this board. But again, I hear about a concern about transparency and about customers in due process. This is something that has been out in the public domain for quite some time, has been discussed at multiple workshops and council meetings along the way. And more so, we post our agenda in 5 different places around town, and any resolution that anyone would like to see is available on, for anyone to see at Town Hall at any time. And additionally, and I'll just end with this, is that, you know, as we've looked at this, we're still working on their FOIA requests, but the amendments that they're talking about to the resolution were merely making sure senior citizens receive the discount in perpetuity, and that we would go back to Artesian and try to get more money from them. And so these type of amendments that are minor, we do a floor amendment, but if they're substantial, I do ask the council to table those things. But ultimately, a resolution can be done orally or written by the council at their purview. Ordinances must be put out for, 2 meetings and noticed and approved. Resolutions are done much differently. So I'll just say that much, and I'll cede the podium back to whomever would like to speak, unless there's some questions for me.
Commissioner Gray, would you put a motion on the table?
Well, Mr. Chair, could I request a statement from staff unless you have that positioned later?
Mr. Walsh is not present. He is present?
Yes,
Mr. Walsh? Okay, would you want to speak on behalf of staff, please?
Thank you, sir.
Sure. Just briefly, Commissioner Gray, thank you. Tom Walsh on behalf of staff. What Mr. O'Brien set forth was accurate. I do not have any disagreement with Delaware, or disagreement with Delaware City. Those due process considerations are not within the jurisdiction of the commission. As set forth in staff's memoranda, this APA and the application meet the 3 prongs of analysis for this commission, which Mr. O'Brien cited, and that was that it's in the public interest and for proper purpose and in accordance with the law. And I believe the analysis ends there. And time-wise, as Mr. Randall mentioned, under Section 215, this is something that is deemed approved, and we are asking the commission by way of this order 9623 to recognize that it's confirmed, and that's where this stands right now. And just lastly, as to what Sue has mentioned in terms of the due process violation, it did accurately state that it was a due process violation of the citizens of Delaware City, but Suez is not representing citizens of Delaware City. So that's not a consideration for the commission today, in my opinion. So
thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Staff supports proposed order 9623.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Please.
I hereby move that the commission adopt the order number 9623 as submitted.
This is Commissioner Drexler. I second it.
Is there, well, one housekeeping matter, the request of Suez to have their letter admitted as Exhibit 1 is denied, and likewise the letter from the city of Delaware City will not be admitted into evidence. Is there any discussion on the motion made by Commissioner Gray? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you very much, all the parties, for that good discussion. We have a hearing scheduled next, and there's nothing on our hearing schedule, so that makes that pretty simple. And now we have public comment. Is there anyone here and present to make public comment?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. This is Dawn Kurtz-Crompton on behalf of Delmarva Power and Light. I would like to make some public comments regarding docket 56, if I may.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Winslow, and good afternoon to you and Commissioner Conaway, Commissioner Drexler, Commissioner Gray, and Commissioner Correa. With me on the line today from Delmarva is Jim Jacoby, who is the Manager of Gas Supply and Transportation for Pepco Holdings, Inc. Mr. Jacoby also assists Delmarva with planning for and procurement of renewable energy credits, known as RECs. We appreciate the opportunity to make public comment today with regard to Order 9614 in Docket 56, which was entered on June 17, 2020, following an executive session of this commission. Despite some prior engagement with Delmarva on matters pertaining to this docket, Delmarva did not have an opportunity to provide any input on this order prior to its issuance, nor has Delmarva had the opportunity to substantively discuss the scope and effects of this order with the commission since its issuance. As this commission is aware, paragraph 1B of Order 9614 states as follows, quote, during the pendency of the disagreements between DENREC and the commission, as stated in the complaint, and until it is resolved, the commission will not approve for recovery in rates any expenses associated with any auction conducted by Delmarva to comply with future RPS requirements, end quote. As an initial matter, the entry of Order 9614 is causing Delmarva to assess the practical effect that the order may have on Delmarva's ability to comply with its obligations pursuant to the Renewable Energy Portfolio Standards Act, known as REPSA. In its current form, REPSA requires Delmarva to meet the state's renewable energy requirements by incorporating a blend of renewable resources into the mix of energy that it procures and passes along to customers. As for the specific language of the order, Delmarva finds ambiguity with Order 9614 insofar as it does not provide any context regarding the term, quote, auction, close quote, or the phrase, quote, any expenses, close quote, or the phrase, quote, to comply with future RPS requirements, close quote. However, Delmarva's most pressing question pertains to the effect, if any, that the order has on Delmarva's ability to seek cost recovery for short-term procurement. Namely, Delmarva would like the Commission to provide clarification as to whether the order is intended to prohibit Delmarva from recovering costs associated with procurement with a term of 1 year or less in duration, known colloquially as spot purchases. While the order does not expressly preclude Delmarva from making spot purchases, the ambiguity in Order 9614 has the potential to create significant impacts to Delmarva's business practices in connection with its procurement planning. As such, and in light of the considerable uncertainty in this docket, Delmarva respectfully seeks clarification from this Commission as to the scope and effects of Order 9614. Delmarva makes this request so that, among other things, it can avoid the risk of being denied cost recovery for any of its future REC purchases, and so that Delmarva can effectively plan its procurement. In closing, Delmarva appreciates the opportunity to express our questions and will comply with any appropriate adjustments to the renewable energy procurement planning process. Likewise, Delmarva will continue to support the deployment of renewable power in this state while meeting the company's commitments to provide safe, reliable, and affordable energy service for our customers and for our communities. Unless the Commission has any questions for me or for Mr. Jacoby, this concludes Delmarva's comments for today in this matter.
Ms. Kurtz-Crompton, thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate them. Does Delmarva Power and Light, quote, conduct, end of quote, any spot market activities? Or merely purchase or procure in the spot market?
Mr. Jacoby, are you on the line to address the Commissioner's question?
Yes, I am. This is Jim Jacoby. The answer to the question is yes. On an annual basis, a little bit more than half of the RECs and SRECs we procure are what I describe as spot market purchases. They are not long-term commitments. We go out into the broker markets and we look at prices, and we get proposals from various bidders, select the best prices and acquire them that way. So the answer to the question is yes, we regularly do spot market purchases.
Okay, but you don't operate any spot markets yourself.
That's correct. We don't sell in the spot market. We only purchase in the spot market.
And okay. Any commissioners have any questions of Ms. Kurtz Crompton or Mr. Jacoby? No questions? Is there someone else who would like to speak with respect to this matter?
Yes, Chairman Winslow. This is Dale Davis from the Delaware Solar Energy Coalition. I appreciate an opportunity to speak on Order 9614.
And we would appreciate your comments. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Well, the Delaware Solar Energy Coalition was quite gratified to see Order 9614 come out and the Commission reconsider the freeze that had been put in on REPSA until other issues surrounding REPSA and cost calculations and authorities and et cetera can be resolved. I'm sure everybody here is well aware of the years that have gone into trying to get it resolved and getting us to the place that we are today. As part of my duties with the Solar Energy Coalition, I also sit on the Renewable Energy Task Force, which was created under REPSA and is a stakeholder group made up of PSD, Advocate's Office, the various utilities, the Solar Energy Coalition, manufacturing, environmentalists, a few other folks, who have been charged with establishing revenue certainty for appropriate investment in renewable energy technologies that are included but not limited to the consideration of long-term contracts and auction mechanisms. We're also charged with ensuring that residential, commercial, and utility scale photovoltaic and solar thermal systems of various sizes are financially viable and cost-effective in Delaware. The primary mechanism that has been used for the last 8 years to do that has, on the solar side, has been the Delaware SREC procurement auction. And, that gets hammered out, the details of it get hammered out in the Renewable Energy Task Force, which, because of its diversity, those tend to become some strenuous conversations, but we come to reasonable conclusions, and then Delmarva brings the program to the Commission for approval. And so far, the Commission has always approved that program, and the results have been quite good. We have the lowest price for SRECs of any viable solar market in the country, and those prices continue to go down. So it's been a positive. It's created jobs. It's resulted in low cost of ratepayers. The biggest problem we've had is with the cost cap and the freeze regulations and the turmoil that has created over especially the last 2 years, that have really chilled economic development of solar in Delaware. We've got financial investor money that continues to pull out to go to states that have a little bit more certainty in their revenue stream. We just lost a couple of 2-megawatt jobs in Delaware since the beginning of June because of this latest freeze that went in. While Order 9614 lifted that freeze, and we're very appreciative of that, paragraph 1B is very chilling. In fact, basically stopped that auction from ever happening. What that means is there's no revenue certainty for a solar project currently in Delaware as long as paragraph 1B stays in effect. That's caused both the large-scale project investors to pull out, and it's stopped individual homeowners and small business investors from making the investment. In the last 2 years, we've lost a couple of hundred jobs in Delaware, good solar jobs.
Well, that has nothing to do with this order.
Thank you. We've got 500 left, but without the ability to run an auction and without the ability to have long-term revenue certainty on solar, we're going to lose 300 jobs by the end of the year. And we do ask that you reconsider paragraph 1B, and just like you decided to allow the rest of the RPS freeze regulations to play out in the courts and in the legislature, we would implore you to also let the auction continue until such time as those decisions get made. Thank you very much, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Davis, first of all, I just want to say that the Renewable Energy Task Force has done just an exceptional job over the years, and it's very disappointing that the Commission finds itself in the position that we find ourselves in. But as you well know, we have the duty here to balance the interests of all the parties and to follow the legislation in this particular case with respect to the freeze. We would be very happy to march over to the Legislative Hall with you and discuss with the legislature some of the issues you've raised, as we also would like to have there to be a viable renewable energy market here in Delaware. But we have an obligation to the people paying the bill under the present legislation, and we can't ignore that. We just can't set that aside. And I think that this commission also, I know I reached out to you to learn more about the auction and what was going on. This commission is very disappointed that we're in this position, but we feel duty-bound that we have to protect the consumers under the present legislation. So we're going to proceed forward. I would also say that I don't think any of our commissioners intended that our order would in any way, shape, or form affect Delmarva's ability to buy into the spot market. Contrarily, we want them to do that to meet their obligation, and I think that's what's going to happen as we go forward. I can appreciate why Ms. Dawn Kurtz-Crompton brought the issue up, but I think, and of course the other commissioners can speak up on this, but I think it's pretty clear that we want Delmarva Power and Light to procure, their obligations in the spot market. And we also want to go forward with the legislature in January to resolve this issue because it is a very important issue for the people that Mr. Davis represents, and we're aware of that and we're supportive, but we also have to follow the legislation, Mr. Davis. Mr. Slater, are you out there, sir? You want to say a word or two?
I am, Mr. Chairman. I think you summed it up very well. I'll just add one point. The Renewable Energy Task Force, which Mr. Davis and I both attend and sit on, had agreed, hasn't met since January, and at the meeting in January, we did have a long discussion about, whether or not an auction would go forward. And it was discussed at a January meeting. At that point, that's all. I appreciate your comments, and that's all I have to add. Thank you.
Commissioners, any comments or questions for the speakers? I'd like to thank once again Ms. Kurtz-Crompton for her comments, and I hope that we have answered your concern. And also, Mr. Davis, the commission staff is very willing to work with you and your group and other people to effectuate a change to our present legislation. It's taken a pandemic to stop us, Mr. Davis. I mean, we have had nothing but bad luck with respect to this particular issue, and to have it all end up under a pandemic is like really sort of crazy. Because you know that legislation wasn't considered basically because of a lack of time the legislature to get together. So I think we're all want to go in the same direction. It's just there's been impediments that we've referred to. Dr. Brewer, director's comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Good afternoon. I have three very quick items. One is the proposed schedule for 2021. I'm seeking your approval. You may wonder why in July we need this approval. This is so that the standard offer service auctions for next year can be set. And the meetings are again going to be on Wednesdays, afternoons at 1 p.m. And we've tried to schedule it 3 weeks apart. So at this point, I ask the Commission's approval of the schedule that I sent you out already.
Commissioners, any problems with the dates set forth? If something comes up, obviously, we can change dates, but Commissioner Gray, is that you?
I move that we adopt the calendar as presented for 2021.
Second the motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Excuse me, did you end the public comment section?
Well, actually, I thought we were over, but is there somebody else out there who wants to make a public comment?
Yes,
Indeed.
indeed.
Can I, excuse me, I still have the floor, can I just finish my director's comment, please? It just take another 30 seconds, thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, I want to bring you up to date, you and the commissioners, that due to a health scare, we had our whole office desanitized and cleaned so that the staff are comfortable coming back when they need to. And last but not least, Commissioner Correa and Commissioner Gray were present at a presentation by a University of Delaware professor and student. We had commissioned a study on renewable natural gas, and we plan to release it by the end of this week. That is all I have, Chairman, Commissioners. Any questions?
Don't hear any questions. I apologize to whatever member of the public is out there that I didn't recognize. Is there somebody else who wishes to speak? Please speak up.
Yes, sir, Mr. Commissioner. My name is Laveda Owens-White, and one of the many hats that I wear in the community is that I serve as the board vice president of the Delaware Interfaith Power and Light. And I wanted to call in today. I heard your comments to Mr. Davis and your apologies, but I would like to go on record as speaking on behalf of the Interfaith, Delaware Interfaith Power and Light, as well as for many of our faith community partners throughout the state. We believe that climate change to be a defining moral issue of our times. Our shared mission is to address both the causes and the consequences of this existential threat to scientifically inform and spiritually deepen our understanding of the complex and interdependent relationship we have with the natural world and with each other, and to act boldly on these understandings. It is because of this mission and these understandings that we urgently request that the Commission revoke paragraph 1B of Order Number 9614, which has been recovery of costs associated with the auction process. It is our understanding that these qualifications does, in effect, functionally translate to a freeze of the RPS. This is a complicated issue, and we are not policy gurus. What we do understand and are extremely concerned about is that the order as it stands creates confusion, uncertainty, and obstacles to expansion of renewable energy projects in Delaware. In stark contrast, we believe that removing 1B could result in improved air quality. All that is more important now as we protect ourselves from the health consequences of COVID-19. Protecting the almost, as Mr. Dale stated, 500 existing solar jobs in Delaware and creating opportunities for potentially hundreds more. We exponentially increase reduction in energy costs for all, as well as a range of cost benefits associated with a reduction in the burning of fossil fuels. I think in removing 1B could result in another step towards racial and income equality in terms of sharing both the burdens and benefits related to the environmental health of our communities. I'd like to quote Reverend Dr. Vincent Oliver. He is president of the Interdenominational Ministers Action Council. In his letter to the members of the General Assembly related to Senate Bill 250, quote, "We are witnessing a time when America's eyes and hearts have been opened to a myriad of injustices that have long been ignored or denied. Along with the racial and social wrongs that are being addressed, we see this as the many threats connected to climate change as another form of injustice," unquote. In closing, my statement is, with so many critical issues demanding our attention and our resources, we cannot lose sight of the even greater threats of a warming planet. We ask you today
to serve the public by withdrawing paragraph 1B from the order number 9614 and return to us another opportunity to secure a better future for all Delawareans. Thank you very much for the time you've given me.
Ms. Owens-White, I just want to express, I believe, on behalf of everybody on the commission and staff, as well as the public advocate, that if you were to talk to us individually, and you would probably be very, very happy to see the response you'd get with respect to climate change and other issues. The problem we have is that we are a child of the legislature. We have the duty and the obligation to follow what the legislation says. We are not given any mandate whatsoever to make changes vis-a-vis climate change issues. If you like us to have that power, we'd have no objection to having more authority, but the legislature would have to change that. So I've read about you in the paper, and I've just, frankly, it's really nice of you. We don't get people showing up too often at public comment sessions, so I really do appreciate your presence and also your position. But I have to just say respectfully that we just can't, follow through with your request. And I feel badly about it, but we have our duty, and we can't ignore that. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments you want to make?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Gray. To Mrs. White, I think the chair has made some very substantial statements and very genuine statements about the support that we would like to give to many of these issues, but we have a scope of responsibility which is governed by statute, which means the law, which is coming from the legislators. And I dare say I've been on this commission for a little over 6 years, and I know that the commission, as well as other agencies, have attempted to get the laws, the terms, the conditions, the scope of responsibilities, and these laws fixed so that we don't find ourselves in this predicament. But as the chair has said, we are governed and navigated by statute. And so we have to perform our statutory responsibilities until and unless the legislatures will change what those conditions are. And so regrettably, that has consequences, and I feel in every way the passion that you have for all of these issues. And as a scientist, I understand how they are connected. And I am hopeful, as is everyone else, that the legislators will provide some priority and attention to these matters that have been before them repeatedly and bring some solution options that will be to the benefit of all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for responding, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Gray as well. I just needed to go on record as voicing my displeasure as well as that of so many of our constituents. Thank you very much for allowing me time to express my opinion.
We appreciate your opinion, and we thank you for being on the call to assist us with respect to this matter. Is there anyone else out there in the public that has not had the chance to make a public comment?
Yes, sir.
Please proceed. Identify yourself and then proceed.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My name is Dustin Thompson. I am a staff at the Delaware chapter of the Sierra Club. I'm the volunteering community outreach coordinator, and I'll keep it brief since you've already responded to many things that I would have liked to have raised. The Sierra Club is in support of CMI Solar and President of the Solar Coalition, Dale Davis, and his comments, and share some of the same concerns that Delmarva Rose brought up in their comments when this issue first came up. On our end of things, we understand that your scope is extraordinarily limited, and would love to work together to ensure that you guys are able to consider, you folks are able to consider the long-term ramifications as well as balancing those with the short-term ramifications of policies and issues like this. One thing that we would like to put on the record that we have been involved in the calculation in a number of other states that have also used national equations to look at the cost of our state's current cost of procurement for renewable energy compliance. And it is, by all of these other determinations, still within the range of under the range of our cost cap. So we still don't completely understand the math that is being used, that is being put out there with the numbers as high as they are. But in terms of the cost to the ratepayer, which of course is the public advocate's primary concern, it's yours probably as well. The economic issue here, which I'm sure I don't have to explain, but I will anyway, that in the way to bring down cost is to thereby increase supply to meet demand, and then by capping the long-term auctions, which are what's will predominantly drive increased development and further development of solar in the state, you're going to, in effect, have that long-term reaction of decreasing supply while demand is increasing because Delmarva is still required to comply with the RPS under this order. So, in effect, you are going to likely have the impact of increasing costs to ratepayers. So it doesn't really make sense if your main goal is to keep costs low, that then you would stop long-term SREC auctions, which have been keeping costs low and will continue to drive development to even less lower costs. And so I would argue that it is within the incumbent upon what the legislator has dictated you guys to do, which is to protect ratepayers, to allow the SREC long-term auctions to continue rather than just spot market, which mainly will likely rely on small development or development that's already in place. So with that in mind, we would like to formally put on the record that we would request that you also rescind Section 1B until such time that the legislature can come back and fix this issue. Thank you very much.
Mr. Thompson, thank you individually, and also thanks to the Sierra Club for your input. With respect to the calculations, you were invited to call staff, in particular Pamela Knotts, and discuss that issue with her. Perhaps you can provide some illumination and other ways for her to calculate, but she very carefully calculated the figures, and as to each category, we were in excess of the limits set up by the legislature and set forth in the statute. So we felt that we were compelled to freeze the auction, which we've changed, but in any case, we have an obligation, as I said, to our consumers as well as to the climate change, even in the face of the climate change issues. Obviously, if I recall correctly, the auctions were usually occurring in May. So we're past the auction period, and we have time to get the legislation passed in January, February, March timeframe, so this auction can go forward in the next spring. So I don't see that it's the end of the world, so to speak. We have the opportunity to work together to convince the legislature to change the law and to let us proceed forward in a way to advance the goals expressed by Ms. Owens-White and yourself and other people who feel strongly about climate change. Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions of Mr. Thompson? Okay, our next meeting, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be on July 29th at 1 p.m. It will be via teleconference because of the extension of the governor's emergency order. I sincerely appreciate your attendance electronically, and I'm looking forward, frankly, to seeing you all in person sometime before the end of the summer. But be safe out there, and we'll see you or hear you at the next meeting. The meeting is now adjourned.